Deidre Racing will be officially switching to Toyota and rebranding to Tricon Garage. Hailie Deegan is expecting to move up to the Xfinity Series, but she needs the funding to be able to move up to the Xfinity Series. And Kyle Busch might have a new sponsor for 2023. What's going on, guys? It's Daniel, and welcome back to our video. We've got a ton of NASCAR and other motorsport stories discussed here today on the channel. Let's go ahead and just jump straight into those really quickly. We're going to start our paint schemes and sponsorship news first. Let's jump those really quickly. First paint scheme we're taking a look at is Brendan Poole's 2022 Out of the Groove scheme that we're seeing next weekend at Phoenix. That's right, Eric Giesep, along with a bunch of partners that have partnered up with him in the past, are going to be sponsoring Brendan Poole next week in the 6 car. Just see Eric's face on the car is absolutely incredible. Car looks absolutely amazing, by the way. It looks like a throwback to 2005 Matt Kenseth's scheme. But this looks absolutely incredible, and just see one of the guys that really got me into doing YouTube get on a car is absolutely incredible. Congratulations to Eric on getting this opportunity. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Denny Hamlin's 2022 FedEx Freight Direct scheme that receives this weekend at Martinsville. There's no changes to this car, really. The only basic major change is the fact it's got FedEx Freight Direct on the car. Other than that, I think it's an okay looking paint scheme. Hopefully Denny Hamlin will have a good run in this car. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Brandon Brown's 2022 Solid Rock Carrier scheme we'll be seeing this weekend at Martinsville. Honestly, pretty decent look at paint scheme in my opinion. Very similar to other Solid Rock Carrier schemes. Hopefully, Brandon Brown will have a good run in this car. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Nick Sanchez's 2022 Barchetta Bourbon scheme that we're going to be seeing this weekend at Martinsville. Cool to see that there's a new look for the 48 car. The 48's had spike coolers for the majority of the season. I love the new look on the car, and good to see Nick Sanchez has a really nice looking ride for this weekend. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Kyle Busch's 2022 M&M's Halloween scheme that we're going to be seeing this weekend at Martinsville. Love this M&M's Halloween scheme. I like it a lot. I've been a big fan of the M&M's Halloween schemes over the years. Of course, this is going to be the last M&M's Halloween scheme that we are going to see. I think it looks really solid. Hopefully Kyle Busch will have a good run in this car this weekend. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Patrick Emerling's 2022 Jordan Teague design scheme that we'll be seeing this weekend at Martinsville. I want to congratulate Jordan on this. Jordan is a really hard-working designer who's put out some really awesome designs in the past. I think it's the first time he's having a design actually used. So I think it looks really exciting and it looks great in my opinion. And the final paint scheme we're taking a look at is 3F Racing's number 30 2023 AHK German-American Chambers of Commerce scheme that we're going to be seeing in 2023. I like this a lot. Hopefully you do see the 30 teams show up, and good to see that they have a sponsor set for 2023. It looks very solid and looks pretty cool in my opinion. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about the Martinsville purse money for this weekend. So Bob Pox, of course, every single week puts out the purse money for every single race. And according to him, this is the purse money. So for the Cup race, it's $8,132,735. And for the Xfinity Series, it's $1,339,357. Of course, for the Cup Series, every single year, that purse money really comes in fruition of all the charters. There's no unchartered teams, so that's the money that they're going to be distributing over the weekend. It's how much that they basically get for the money. But that is the money that is going to be going into the race. It's not a major shock that those are the numbers, and those are the numbers that we're going to see in the money going in. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Chase Elliott. As according to Adam Stern, Hooters is launching a new ghost kitchen hand with Chase Elliott called Chase Elliott's Chicken Tenders associated with Hooters. I think it'll be a vendor around 48 different stores in a bunch of different states. This is a really cool thing to see. I think Bubba Wallace did this last year as well, and NASCAR has done this in the past as well. I think it's really good sponsorship activation as well for the companies. We're starting to see more sponsorship, a little more sponsorship activation, which I think is really cool. Honestly, this is definitely really exciting for sure. I really love the fact that they're doing this, and I'm glad to see that they're doing this for Chase Elliott. This is really cool to see, in my opinion. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, is we're going to talk about Austin Theriault. Now, we're going a little political a little bit, but Austin Theriault is actually going to be running for Maine House of Representatives. We kind of talked about some of the channel in the past, but Austin Theriault is going to be running for a seat in the Maine House of Representatives, going from being a former race car driver who could have been a Cup Series champion one day to now running for a potential position in the House of Representatives of Maine. Hope people will go out and vote for Austin Theriault. Hope he has an opportunity to be on the Maine House of Representatives, and hope he can be able out there and help out Maine as well and get this in the state in really good check. I think Maine's a really solid state for people who probably live there, but I think it's really cool to see he's getting an opportunity to gun for it. Hope he does get an opportunity to do it, and we'll see what happens, but cool to see that he's getting an opportunity to do that. And now we're going to head jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Pennsboro Speedway. As it was reported on Wednesday afternoon that Racetrack Revival XR Events is going to be bringing back racing to Pennsboro Raceway in 2024. Another legendary track of West Virginia that has not hosted racing in a very, very long time will be hosting racing once again. Honestly, I think this is really, really exciting, really, really cool. It's cool to see the Racetrack Revival, which I think Dale Jr. is associated with that company. I think it's amazing to see the Racetrack Revival is continuing to bring old racetracks back on the circuit. Very fascinating. We'll have to watch and see what goes down in regards to that. But if they could bring North Wilkesboro back, I think they could bring a track like this back. So this is really fascinating, really exciting, and really great to see, in my opinion. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Goodyear. Now, this is a report that I did not really talk about, but Goodyear is actually be debuting a new tire this weekend at Martinsville for the Cup Series. The goal of this new tire is to try to bring rubber onto the racetrack. If you watch the last race at Martinsville, it was really, really bad. There was no rubber on the track, really cold temperatures. The thing about this weekend is it's going to be a little bit warmer. It's supposed to be around 60 degrees as the high, but it's supposed to get in the 50s, so we don't know how much rubber is going to be laid down. That's what Goodyear is bringing this new tire to also have a little more fall on the tire as well to provide potential better racing for it. Hopefully this tire will provide better racing. It gives me a little more optimism that there is going to be more rubber on the track, so hopefully there will be a second groove available to use. I think it's good to see that they're trying to make the racing better. At least NASCAR and Goodyear are trying to be a little more proactive. Hopefully whatever changes they're making, hopefully it will help the series, and we'll see if that will benefit, but we'll have to wait and see what happens if it does fix the racing. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Matt Swiderski. Now, this is something I don't think anybody really talked about, but Matt Swiderski is expected to crew chief once again for AJ Allmendinger 2023, as he expects to be crew chief for Allmendinger next season. Matt Swiderski has been the crew chief, I think, for the last years of the number 16 COG Racing entry, and now looks like he'll once again crew chief for AJ. If that pairs work together really well, why would you break it up? AJ's had a really good streak of top 10 finishes. I think in the last 6 Cup races he's entered, he's actually finished in the top 10, so AJ's ran very, very solid. And I expect that this pairing is going to be a big threat at certain points next year in certain races. So if the pairing's working good, why would you break it up? I think it's really exciting to see for sure, though, that Matt Swiderski will be crew chiefing for AJ Allmendinger 2023. Really good to see for sure. Not confirmed, but expect he'll crew chief once again. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Corey LaJoie. As last night, Martinsville had the Whelen Modified Tour Championship race. A bunch of drivers, including Ryan Newman, Bobby Labonte, and Corey LaJoie, ended up racing in that. And Corey LaJoie ended up winning the Whelen Modified Tour race at Martinsville, picking up probably one of the biggest victories of his racing career. Now, apparently there had been a wreck that Corey had been involved in. Look back at the wreck, I don't really think it was Corey's fault. And John McKennedy, who actually was the points leader coming to the event, also won the 2022 Whelen Modified Tour Championship. Congratulations to John McKennedy. He's been wanting to win it for a very long time. So glad to see he was able to get it done. Also amazing to see Corey LaJoie go out there and win. It's good that Corey can have something else on his resume and win one of the biggest events in that calendar. Congratulations to Corey LaJoie, and congratulations to him on winning the Whelen Modified Tour Championship. We'll be talking about the Championship Tour for 2023 to schedule for that here in the not-so-distant future. But congratulations to him on winning the championship. Great to see Corey LaJoie get it done, and very happy for him to get the championship done. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Flat Rock Park. Now, there's a new racing facility that is being built in the, I think, northern or the middle of Tennessee, called Flat Rock Park, that's going to cost around $100 million for the goal of racing from things like IndyCar and MotoGP and NASCAR potentially to race at this new facility. Now, the ground, I think, has just been broken as of recently. There's been some new plans that have been broken in, and the goal is to have the track built in the next couple years so racing can eventually be racing at Flat Rock Park. This is really, really cool to see a new racing facility for all types of forms of racing, maybe even Formula One in the not-so-distant future could have an opportunity to race here. But I think this is so exciting to see, and glad to see that there's a new track that's going to be run. I think it's awesome, and glad to see that there's a new track showing up, and I think it's for sure really exciting to see. So glad to see a new track on the circuit. Pretty exciting to see for sure, in my opinion. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Big Machine Racing. As multiple reporters, including Casey Campbell and I believe Davey Siegel as well, have reported that Big Machine Racing will be announcing their driver for 2023 at 10:45 Eastern tomorrow at Martinsville Speedway before NASCAR Xfinity Series race takes place later that day. Big Machine Racing, a team, of course, will be, I believe, in their third season as an organization who took major strides this year, got their first win as a team earlier this year, Tyler Reddick at Texas Motor Speedway, and now they'll be looking to take more strides this next season as they look to have a full-time driver. It's unclear who that driver will be. However, I have a theory. It's not going to be Nick Sanchez. I think Nick Sanchez is going to be going to Kyle Busch Motorsports. Maybe Parker Kligerman, maybe Kyle Weatherman. Who knows at this point, but whoever it is, hopefully they'll bring really good stuff. Maybe Roger Kroof is their driver. Who knows at this point? We're really excited to see the Big Machine will be announcing their drive for 2023, and we'll know about that in the not-so-distant future, but I think it's really exciting to see for sure, in my opinion, really exciting to see. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Kaz Grala. As Kaz Grala is going to drive the 26 for Sam Hunt Racing next weekend at Phoenix. Kaz Grala's driven for a lot of different teams this year. He's driven for Big Machine, Young's Motorsports. He's driven for the Money Team. He's driven for a bunch of different teams, and now will drive for another organization. Kaz Grala, a very solid driver who always gets the best out of his equipment. I would definitely love for him to have an opportunity, maybe go full-time with Sam Hunt Racing, because I think Kaz deserves this opportunity. He's running solid with Young's Motorsports this year, and I think Kaz Grala will do very solid next week at Phoenix with Sam Hunt Racing. I don't think he'll win. I don't think he'll do what John Hunter did, where he led a lot of laps. But I think Kaz will contend for a top 10. I think he's got the overall pace and the overall speed to get it done. Really exciting to see for sure, though, that Kaz Grala will drive the 26 for Sam Hunt Racing. I think it's really cool to see and very exciting to see for sure, in my opinion. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Nicholas Latifi. Now, yesterday it was reported by Jenna Fryer that basically she says that Nicholas Latifi is interested in IndyCar, but nothing is set for 2023, and he may sit out for the rest of the season and might sit out for 2023 as well. There's been a lot of rumors that Nicholas Latifi could end up going to Chip Ganassi Racing, but apparently those rumors have been at least denied at this particular point. Nicholas Latifi, of course, has interest in IndyCar. We're seeing more F1 drivers get interest in IndyCar, and hopefully that Nicholas Latifi can race in 2023. I know that this year in Formula 1 was not fantastic. Let's be real, Nicholas Latifi has not really done a great job in Formula 1, but I do hope Nicholas Latifi gets an opportunity to really show, because sometimes when you do go run IndyCar, some of these guys that don't do as good in Formula 1, they tend to do much better in IndyCar. So I think it will be exciting for sure to see what he ends up doing. Hopefully Nicholas Latifi will have his plan set for 2023 so he can end up racing. Hopefully he gets to race for a really good team as well heading into 2023. Hope he finds a ride for next year, and hopefully it's with a great organization. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Jeff Burton. Now, Jeff Burton was speaking on SiriusXM NASCAR Radio about those driver safety meetings that have been happening over the last couple of days. And Jeff Burton says that the recent meetings that the drivers and the teams have been way more positive. Now, he didn't say how many people were there. I think a lot of people ended up being there for those meetings recently. But basically, a lot of these meetings, they've seen more and more drivers basically going ahead and showing up to them. Basically said the meetings have been a lot more positive and we're heading toward a right direction. He did say on that broadcast, so basically during that, basically said on the radio that he said currently right now that we should have had these meetings in July and August, and he 100% agree with him on that. When the Kurt Busch stuff happened, we should have had those meetings back then, but it's better to have them now than never, right? So it's good to see the meetings are happening, and they're happening a lot more positively. You want the meetings to go more positive, and it's good to see the meetings are kind of heading toward, so common ground for sure. Really good to see for sure, in my opinion. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Valtteri Bottas. As Valtteri Bottas is speaking with, I think Kevin Clark was the guy's name, if I'm not mistaken. And Valtteri Bottas is actually interested in racing in IndyCar. He's got a little bit of interest in American racing. We've, of course, seen a lot of Formula 1 drivers go over to IndyCar and succeed very well. We've, of course, seen Romain Grosjean go to IndyCar and be pretty successful over there. We've seen Alexander Rossi go race in IndyCar from racing in Formula 1. And guess what? Rossi's going to win the Indy 500 and be a contender for championships, and probably will be a contender for championships again with Aaron McLaren SP in 2023. Valtteri Bottas is definitely really excited to see if he actually does come over and race in IndyCar, because I think it would be really great for the sport if he got that opportunity to race in IndyCar in the future. Hopefully he does come over and race, because the more IndyCar drivers can Formula One to IndyCar, the better it's going to be. I don't think Bottas will leave IndyCar, at least not IndyCar, leave Formula One for the next couple years. I think he'll stay there for a few more years, but maybe in the not so distant future, we're going to see Valtteri Bottas racing IndyCar. We'll have to wait and see what happens, but it sounds like he's got a little bit of interest in racing in IndyCar here in the future. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Audi. As it was announced on late Tuesday evening and early Wednesday morning that Sauber is going to be competing as Audi, the factory team in Formula One starting in 2026. Sauber, of course, a team that's been historically known to move organizations over the years. I think they're partnered with Alfa Romeo. Currently, at the moment, will now be partnering up with Audi starting in 2026. This isn't a shocker or a surprise to me, to be honest. I'm really not surprised that they've gone ahead and done this, considering historically that they've been a team that's moved to different manufacturers, different organizations over the years. It's not a shock or surprise to me that they are making this move. Of course, Audi will be joining. There's a lot of rumors that Porsche could be buying into Red Bull as well. So we're looking to eventually have some new manufacturers coming into sport in the next couple of years. We're going to have to wait and see what happens for sure, how much success this really will come with, but we'll definitely see what happens, and good to see that there's a new manufacturer coming in, and Audi will be joining Formula One in 2023. Pretty exciting to see for sure. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about the Mexico City Grand Prix. As it was announced yesterday that the Mexico City Grand Prix is going to remain on the Formula One schedule at least through 2025 and potentially longer. The Mexico City Grand Prix has been around for many, many years, and of course, this weekend Formula One will be racing in Mexico City. It's really great to see that they are returning, and will stay on the schedule through at least the 2025 season. I would expect that they are going to stay on the schedule a lot longer than 2025, considering the success and how many people do show up every single year. But I think it's great to see that they are continuing to be on the schedule at least through 2025, and hopefully we'll continue to see them stay much longer than that, even probably like through 2030 or even 2035. Wait and see what happens, but good to see Mexico City will continue to be on the schedule, at least for the not-so-distant future. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Tony Kanaan. As Tony Kanaan was speaking to the media, and Nathan Brown, who works at Indy Star, reported that he says reports on driving for Aaron McLaren SP in the Indy 500 are currently premature. He says that is an option for 2023, but he says he spoke to Chip Ganassi as recently as Tuesday, so a few days ago he spoke to Chip Ganassi. So it looks like a lot of us jumped the gun on that report that he would be driving for Aaron McLaren SP in the Indianapolis 500. Again, Tony Kanaan, a driver who's won the Indy 500. A lot of teams are interested in him, and he actually finished on the podium in the 2022 Indianapolis 500. So he's going to be racing Indy 500 nonetheless next year. The big question is, we don't know where exactly he'll be driving for. He can still be driving for Chip Ganassi next year. There's rumors that Kenny Raikkonen also could be racing in the Indy 500 or racing with Chip Ganassi next year, as well as been some rumors on that, but that hasn't been confirmed at this point. We'll have to definitely wait and see what happens for sure, but it sounds like reports are premature, but it looks like Tony Kanaan will at least be racing in the Indy 500 in some particular facet in 2023, but we're not sure exactly for sure what team he'll be driving for. We'll have to wait and see what happens, what team he'll be driving for in 2023 for the Indy 500. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Buddy Kofoid. Now, I believe it was reported by Matt Weaver yesterday. He says that Buddy Kofoid will continue to get reps on pavement next year, but he will do most work on dirt in a 410 car for Toyota Racing Development in 2023. Again, Buddy Kofoid has been associated with dirt for a very, very long time, but has been getting some reps on pavement, and actually made a couple starts in the Camp World Truck Series with TRD for Kyle Busch Motorsports. But we'll talk about why this is the case and why he won't be racing unless he does race maybe for the certain team that we'll talk about here in the not-so-distant future. Buddy Kofoid, of course, a very successful driver in the dirt ranks. He's won a bunch of dirt races, and now will get an opportunity and a shot to continue doing that in 2023. Again, I think his dream is to race in NASCAR one day, but it will all come down to sponsorship and funding. He does got work and basic sponsorship funding from other companies as well. It's really cool to see that Buddy Kofoid will get to do what he does, which is dream, and continues to race. But it won't be likely on pavement next year, but he will get some reps on dirt and continue doing that. Hopefully he'll be able to see it out and continue to see it what he's been able to do and what he loves to do. And hopefully he'll get to some point come back and race in NASCAR. But we'll have to wait and see what happens if that does end up happening. And now we're going to head jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about the 2023 Whelen Modified Tour schedule. As the 2023 Whelen Modified Tour schedule was released yesterday. Now, the 2023 Whelen Modified Tour schedule will be 19 races, which I think will be the largest schedules the Whelen Modified Tour has ever had. So, the season is going to kick off on February 11th at New Smyrna, followed by Richmond on March 31st. Then on May 6th, they'll be racing at Monadnock. Then on May 20th, they'll be racing at Riverhead. Then on May 27th, it's to be announced. We don't know what racetrack we'll be racing for that. Then on June 10th, we'll be racing at Seeknock. Then June 24th, we're going back to Riverhead. And then on June 8th, or July 8th, we'll be racing at Wall Stadium, followed by New Hampshire on July 15th. Then we have a 2-week break, and we'll basically have a racetrack that has not been announced at this time on July 29th. Then on August 5th, we'll be racing at Lancaster. Then on August 16th, we'll be racing at Thompson. August 26th, we'll race at Langley. Then September 7th, we'll race at Oswego. Then on September 9th, we'll race at Monadnock. Then on September 16th, we'll race at Riverhead. Then on September 30th, for the first time, we'll be racing in North Wilkesboro. October 8th, we'll be racing at Thompson. And finally, the final race of the season, just like this year, will be at Martinsville. Very solid schedule, in my opinion. Excited to see that North Wilkesboro will be on the schedule on September 30th for the first time in the Whelen Modified Tour history. I think the schedule looks very solid, in my opinion. More races I think they've ever had in the history of the Whelen Modified Tour. So very excited to see for sure. And I'm happy to see that they will have that schedule. And I think the schedule is very solid and looks pretty good, in my opinion. Congratulations on the Whelen Modified Tour getting another more races for 2023. Very excited to see for sure, in my opinion. And now we're going ahead to jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Lewis Hamilton. Now, Lewis Hamilton was speaking to the media this past week and speaking in Mexico, and he says he's ready to sign another deal with Mercedes. Now, he did not disclose how long the deal was going to be when he was being interviewed, but it sounds like he wants to sign a long-term deal and stay with the team at least for a few more seasons. Lewis Hamilton, I believe, has a contract for either this year or next season. So by the end of 2023, Lewis Hamilton will be 38 years old. Lewis Hamilton, by the time of his next contract, by the end of that contract, will likely be in his early to mid-40s. Now, Lewis Hamilton has been racing Formula 1 since 2007 at the age of 22 years old. So I don't know how much longer Lewis Hamilton is going to race. He's getting up there in age. He's getting a little bit older. So it probably will be a short-term deal, I think probably through 2025. And I think at some point he will retire from Formula 1 just because of the fact of his age. But again, I don't know how much longer Lewis Hamilton wants to race. I think he wants to win an 8th championship. I think that's on the back burner, and wants to win more races and extend his wins total that he has, which right now he has 103. Max Verstappen has been closing in on that goal. I think Verstappen has 33 career wins in Formula 1 now, so he's definitely getting closer to that goal to catch Lewis Hamilton. And this year, especially with Lewis not winning a race yet and Max winning 13 races this season, I think there's a very big possibility and a great chance that he could catch him heading into next season. No doubt about it for sure, and Lewis sounds like Lewis wants to sign a long-term deal, and hopefully whatever deal he signs, he can be really successful with that. So good to see that he will be has signed, and we're going to sign a new deal in the not-so-distant future. Hopefully, he'll be very successful with the team going forward, can help the team become a more successful organization. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Kyle Busch. Now, we got a couple Kyle Busch reports that we're going to talk about here on the channel, but the first Kyle Busch report came out from Bob Pockrass yesterday, and he reports that Kyle Busch says he won't be emotional at Phoenix in the last race next week at Phoenix with Joe Gibbs, but can look back at the last 18 years and will be proud of what he's been able to accomplish with the team and wonder what has happened the last 2 years. Obviously, Kyle Busch will not be returning to Joe Gibbs Racing in 2023, and he'll be going to Rich Strolls Racing to drive the 8 car next season. Now, Kyle Busch, obviously, next week is going to be the final race for him at Joe Gibbs Racing, and you think about all success that Kyle Busch has had with Joe Gibbs Racing. 2 championships, over 60, or nearly 60 wins, including exhibition races and winning points-paying races as well. He's won the Brickyard 400 twice with them. He's won the Coca 600. He's won the Southern 500 and has led many, many laps and has also won an Xfinity Series championship with Joe Gibbs Racing as well. The success that Kyle Busch has had cannot be taken for granted, and it's seen the team succeed in what he's been able to accomplish. To bring that 18 car back at the front like he used to be at Bobby Labonte has been such an amazing thing to see, and I think him going over to Rich Schultz Racing next year. I think he's going to make Richard Schultz Racing a much stronger team as well, and everything he's been able to accomplish. It's kind of wild to think about. Like, I've been a fan now of this sport for like 15 years, and to think that Kyle Busch is not going to be with Joe Gibbs Racing. We all thought he's going to be with the team for his whole entire NASCAR Cup Series career, and really for his whole career for that matter, stay with Toyota as a Toyota lifer. I think it tells you how much the sport has changed in the last 15 years. Evan is, of course, running their last race next week at Phoenix International Raceway. It's going to be sad to see them leaving the sport as a whole, but I think in all seriousness, I think Kyle Busch is definitely ready to go over and race for Joe Gibbs Racing, go over and race for Rich Schultz Racing next year. I think he's really excited about that for sure. He's really excited about that opportunity. I don't think he can wait much longer. Sounds like your sponsor's on the way for Kyle Busch as well. It's good to see that Kyle Busch sounds like he's got some sponsors for 2023. But just everything Kyle Busch has accomplished has just been amazing. Congratulations, all success you've had with Joe Gibbs Racing, Kyle. And I cannot wait for more success when he goes over to Richard Childress Racing. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Stewart-Haas Racing. As expected, it was announced yesterday afternoon around 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time that Stewart-Haas Racing has lost their appeal to the race manipulation penalties on the number 41 car for Cole Custer. That means the penalties have been upheld. The 50-point penalty for Cole Custer and $100,000 fine. Mike Shiplett's indefinite suspension will continue, as Mike Shiplett has been indefinitely suspended for the last 2 weeks. He will be indefinitely suspended for the not-so-distant future. For those who are unaware what happened and why they basically appealed these penalties, Stewart-Haas Racing was penalized massively in those huge penalties talked about a couple weeks ago. They were penalized massively for race manipulation on the racetrack. On the last 2 laps of the race at the Charlotte Roval, Cole Custer's crew chief Mike Shiplett basically told Cole Custer, saying, "You've got a flat tire, check up from radio communication," where Cole Custer basically backed up and let Chase Briscoe by and basically continued on and started going back up to speed. That right there is race manipulation. However, NASCAR's been extremely inconsistent. I want to talk about this because ThorSport Racing, they were basically doing team orders right there for sure. Why were they not penalized? I know that ThorSport Racing historically, they have basically been a team that doesn't always work together, but I'm shocked and surprised that they were not penalized for race manipulation as well. If we're going to penalize Stewart-Haas Racing for race manipulation, why are we not penalizing ThorSport Racing for race manipulation? Don't get me wrong, I don't really care, to be honest. It's just that if we're going to penalize one, we need to penalize the other. I think there needs to be a lot more consistent structure, and the fact it hasn't been seen a lot of that consistent structure that we're really needing to see, I think is really frustrating to see. So I wish there was a little more consistent structure on this. We've seen team orders as well. Obviously, Chase Elliott basically, I think, went for himself. I know he's helping the 5 car, but he could have gotten penalized. But I don't think that was clear race manipulation, at least on his part. I think a clear race manipulation that should have been penalized is when Erik Jones was told to not pass Denny Hamlin, saying, "Don't pass him, Jones." Basically, that's clear team orders right there. And again, I don't really care about team orders, but if we're going to penalize one, we need to penalize every other instance. And I think it's frustrating to see that we couldn't see consistency on that front, but it's not a surprise. NASCAR is always consistently inconsistent, and it's not a major shock or surprise that they're once again being consistently inconsistent. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Kyle Busch once again. Now, obviously, Kyle Busch, of course, we already know he's going to Rich Schultz Racing in 2023, but it looks like we may have a new sponsor coming through. Now, it sounds like right now at this moment, it just sounds like it's for fun. Well, it sounds like Sling may be interested in sponsoring Kyle Busch for 2023, which they're not the first sponsor. Hot Wheels has been interested as well, but it sounds like Sling could be interested in sponsoring him for 2023. It all started with a tweet that basically came out from USA Network, basically saying who is going to be basically selling the best candy bars. Sling put a tweet down basically saying they said the Candyman better be the best at it, since he's basically hopefully handing out life-size candy bars or something like that. Then Kyle Busch responded to them by basically saying, "I would love for Sling to come and sling me over a sponsorship." And then Sling basically said, "Hey, Lefty, help us out design a race car." Lefty, of course, Noah Sweet, who I think is one of the best designers in the game. He's a really good designer. He's designed some really awesome-looking cars this season as well. And his car looks absolutely incredible. The Sling sponsor, which tells me that there's been something going on behind the scenes. Lefty, unless he basically knows how to design stuff really, really quickly, it takes time to design these race cars. And the fact that Lefty already had a really good-looking scheme should say everything. Kyle Busch said, "Well, that was easy." And then basically later that evening, Sling basically told Kyle Busch, like last night before I filmed last night or earlier today, they said, hey, we've basically donated $8,888 to help your case. And then Kyle Busch said, thank you for being generous. And he said social media can be a bad place, but you basically seeing him generous. Look, I don't know if this is all just for good fun or anything, but it sounds like this actually could be the real deal. And this could actually be a legitimate sponsor for Kyle Busch, which would be a really bad look for Joe Gibbs Racing. If Kyle Busch is already getting sponsors willing to work with him, we know that Hot Wheels is interested in sponsoring Kyle, and now it sounds like another company's interested in sponsoring Kyle. This is generally a really bad look for Toyota and Joe Gibbs Racing. The fact that Kyle Busch is being able to find more sponsors already. And that should tell a lot of things that it doesn't sound like, at least for the Joe Gibbs side of stuff, look, Toyota probably, they wanted to keep Kyle Busch. But it sounds like Joe Gibbs really at the end wasn't caring about the sponsorship at the end. I think what ended up really going down is Joe Gibbs wanted to put Ty Gibbs in the car. He obviously really wanted to put Ty. Again, I know he said he wanted to put Ty and keep him in the Xfinity Series for 2023. But obviously, we know that Kyle Busch, he's been really frustrated with what has happened, how things went down. You look at some of his most recent likes, some of the most recent tweets. We know that Kyle Busch has not been really, really happy with Joe Gibbs. And honestly, I would say this when it comes to situation, this isn't a shock or surprising, but I thought this was just a really good, fun thing to see that we've got a company like Sling who's never sponsored before, which I don't know if that would break any NASCAR's rules because of the TV deals. And of course, NASCAR's got Xfinity as a premier sponsor. But again, we've seen other companies sponsor Cup Series ranks as well. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. Hopefully they do sponsor Kyle Busch in 2023, which it sounds like they could be sponsoring them in 2023. I think it'd be really, really exciting. It'd be really, really sure. Hopefully we will see a potential new sponsor heading into 2023. But it's cool to see that we got some fun going on behind the scenes, some stuff happening on social media, because social media can be really toxic, but it looks like things are being a lot more fun for sure. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the first of two major stories in today's episode as we're talking about DGR Racing. Now, DGR Racing, as expected, we talked about this a few weeks ago, they are going to be switching over to Toyota starting in 2023. But another big thing that's happening for DGR Racing is that they're actually going to be rebranding heading into 2023, and they're going to be rebranding to Tricon Garage starting in 2023. They'll be switching over to Toyota, and they'll be basically buying all the cassettes from Kyle Busch Motorsports, and they'll be branded up with Toyota becoming the big Toyota team starting in 2023. Big thing you notice that all the other teams, Sport Hall and Friesen, and the other companies associated with Toyota, they are going to be also branded with Toyota once again next season. Now, going into 2023, they will have 4 trucks heading into the season. Tanner Gray will remain in the 15 truck heading into 2023. Taylor Gray will move to the 17 truck basically full-time next year. He won't race in the first 3 races, though, due to him not being 18 years old. I would expect that an all-star driver from the Cup Series or Xfinity Series will drive that truck. The number 1 truck, which Hailie Deegan is driven for, it confirms that she will not be returning to the team. We'll talk about her in a little bit in this episode. But they basically announced that she will not be back with the team, and the 1 truck will be the all-star truck with multiple different drivers. Drivers like John Hunter Nemechek, Sammy Smith potentially, maybe Ty Gibbs, maybe other drivers will get behind the wheel of this 1 truck heading into 2023. And Corey Heim, who currently drives the 51 truck for majority of the season in Kyle Busch Motorsports, he will drive the 11 truck for Tricon Garage starting in 2023. Now, looking at some other things to note, SiriusXM, JBL, Safelite, and Mobil 1 will all be partnering up with Tricon Garage starting in 2023. DGR Racing was a team that used to, Tricon Garage was a team that used to be associated with former neighbor DGR Crossley Racing. This is the 3rd rebrand of the organization, as it used to be called DGR Crossley. Then they last year changed to DGR, and now they're named Tricon Garage. Honestly, I like DGR Racing a lot better than Tricon Garage, but basically it's True Icon, I think, is the name that they're going with. So I think that's why they basically became Tricon Garage. But obviously, I'm really excited to see what DGR Racing or Tricon Garage can do heading into 2023. I don't know how Tanner Gray is going to do. The big question is, how will the other drivers do? I think Corey Heim, he's going to be a championship contender at Tricon Garage. If Toyota is associated with the company, I really think that he will do well. He's going to be a really good driver. And what this is like I said, is like a really good association and a branding. I would expect that they're going to form as well as Kyle Busch Motorsports did this year. I expect some pretty big things from this team next season. I think they're going to win some races. DGR Racing, Tricon Garage has won some races in the past. They won a couple races this year one with Ryan Preece, one with Todd Gilliland. They were Ford organization, and of course, they won with Tyler Anchor when they were a Toyota team back in 2019, and now they're going back to their roots and being a Toyota team heading into 2023. It's good to see that they're keeping the Toyota pipeline going. I've been really worried about Toyota long term, and I've been a little critical of how Toyota has kind of shafted their drivers. Kyle Busch, he's leaving and going over to RCR. KBM is not going to be a Toyota-based team anymore. They're going to be a Chevy-based team, and they're expected to have 3 trucks heading into 2023. Obviously, of course, they're going to be losing Chandler Smith, who'll be going over to Kaulig Racing next season. And then, of course, they obviously are going to basically be losing Brandon Jones, who's going over to the 9 car for Junior Motorsports, and losing Matt Menard's funding. But they've got a lot of drivers that are still in the pipeline. Of course, Corey Heim, Sammy Smith, who's likely going to be the 18 car next year. John Hunter Nemechek, who sounds like he'll be likely in the number 19 next year. And then, of course, they'll probably have a 3rd car. There'll be an all-star car and other drivers in development program that will be part of that. So they're not in bad shape or anything. It's just that when you lose so many of these drivers, you can be really critical. But this is a big pickup, in my opinion. DJR Racing, I think, Tricon Garage will probably be a very solid team heading into next season. I think they'll be championship contenders. And honestly, Corey Heim expects to be a championship threat. Taylor Gray will probably make the playoffs, and I think Tanner's got a shot at making the playoffs as well. Trucks, I think, just got a little more competitive heading into 2023. And not only do you think KBM will be good with Chevy, but I also think Tricon Garage will be a very solid team as well. So congratulations on this move, and glad to see that there's a new team showing up on the block for 2023. And good to see the Tricon Garage will be going over back to Toyota in 2023. God, I'm not a big fan of that name. I'd rather it be DJR Racing, but good to see that there will be a new fast Toyota team for 2023. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the final major story of today's episode, as we're talking about Hailie Deegan. Now, with the announcement of Tricon Garage switching to Toyota for 2023, it's officially been confirmed that Hailie Deegan will not be returning to DJR Racing or Tricon Garage in 2023, and she will be with Ford in 2023. Now, it needs to be noted that Hailie Deegan will likely be in the NASCAR Xfinity Series in 2023, but it currently is not announced, and currently at this moment, it is to be determined. A couple weeks ago at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, Hailie Deegan made her NASCAR Xfinity Series debut for the 07 car with SS Greenlight Racing, where she actually ended up having a really solid performance. Yes, it was an SHR prepared car, but Hailie Deegan ended up having a really solid performance, ended up finishing 13th in her NASCAR Xfinity Series debut, which I think is one of her more impressive runs that she's had since getting to the top ranks of NASCAR. I think Hailie Deegan definitely needs to be in the NASCAR Xfinity Series for a lot of reasons. Number one, I think her debut proved it. Some drivers are not cut out for the truck series. They don't do as good in trucks, and then they go to the NASCAR Xfinity Series, and they end up doing a lot better. Look at Harrison Burton, for example. Harrison Burton, he struggled with Kyle Busch Motorsports in the truck series, and guess what he does in the first year going to Joe Gibbs? He goes on to win 4 races that year and nearly makes the championship for that year. Granted, I think he got eliminated in the round of 12 that year, but he ended up winning 4 races and had a chance to potentially win the championship that year if he had not been eliminated in the round of 12 earlier in the playoffs. Look at Noah Gragson. Noah Gragson, while he did get a couple wins at Kyle Busch Motorsports, he's won 13 races with Junior Motorsports in the 9 team and is a championship favorite. In fact, I think he is the championship favorite and has won 8 races so far in the Xfinity Series in the number 9 car. And then obviously look at Jimmy Johnson. Jimmy Johnson did not race in trucks at all. He bypassed everything and goes on to win 7 Cup Series championships. Kevin Harvick ran a few truck races, wasn't as successful, goes to Rich Schultz Racing in the first year with the team in 2000, goes on to win a few races and nearly wins the championship. 2001 wins the championship, and then goes on and wins the Cup championship. You don't need to be out there and be racing in the Xfinity. Look, and also in trucks. Look at Ty Gibbs as well. Ty Gibbs, extremely successful driver who didn't even race in trucks and is already looking to go full-time Cup racing next season. Some drivers' styles fit better than others, and I think she'll fit better in Xfinity. Now let's talk about what rides she could end up driving for heading into 2023. Obviously, it's going to have to be a Ford-based team. The first team she could drive for is another ride in SS Greenlight Racing, take over for Joe Graf Jr. and drive the 07 car and make that an SHR prepared car. I think it'd be a really good ride for her if it's an SHR prepared car, and she basically driving the same team that she ended up driving for earlier this year at Las Vegas, and I think she'd do really successful with that team and probably have sponsors that'd be willing to work with her, which I think they're working on trying to find funding for her so she could race. Another team that Hailie Deegan could race for in 2023, she could drive for a second Stewart-Haas racing car. Now, Riley Herbst, while it's not been 100% confirmed that he'll be driving next year in the Xfinity Series, I would think it is very likely that Riley Herbst will be back in the 98 car in 2023 next season. Stewart-Haas Racing, if they wanted to, they could put her in a second car, which I think that would be a really good move to move her into a race-winning caliber car. I don't really think Hailie Deegan would win, but I think she potentially could make the playoffs. I think she'd be a very solid driver in that 00 car, bring the 00 car back, and be successful with it. I think it'd be good to have her in SHR. SHR really wants to sign her. I've heard that. They really want to sign her for 2023. But we don't know at this point. That could be a really good opportunity for her. I think the final ride available for her is also back in the Truck Series. You can't leave that option out the window and could potentially go to a second Front Row Motorsports truck. Now, Front Row Motorsports, I would think they're willing to expand heading into 2023. As we know, like I said, Deidre, they're switching over basically back over to Toyota next year. But basically, at this particular point, I know that it would be cool for her to run in a competitive car, but again, I just don't think she needs to be racing in trucks. Truck Series is basically a lot less talent-based series. No disrespect to a lot of people in trucks. There's a lot of good drivers in the Truck Series, but I don't think Truck Series has much of the talent base as you see in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. And I believe personally, when it comes to Hailie Deegan, I think it would make a lot more sense for her to potentially go over and race in Xfinity. I think she needs to be in the Xfinity Series, to be honest, next season. And where I think she go to Stewart-Haas Racing. That'd be a great team to go with, and I know Stewart-Haas wants to sign her for next year, so it'd be cool to have her in the team. We're just going to have to wait and see what happens in regards to what goes on for Hailie Deegan, but it sounds like she could potentially be in Xfinity next year, but we'll have to wait and see what happens. As I'm currently editing today's video, we got some major breaking news. It was just announced about 30 minutes ago that Alex Bowman has officially been cleared to race at Phoenix, which means Alex Bowman will be back behind the wheel of the 48 car at Phoenix next weekend. Of course, Phoenix is season finale, and I think Alex Bowman really wanted to go ahead and race with his crew chief, Greg Ives, who will be retiring from crew chiefing duties at the end of this season. First of all, I'm very, very happy to see that Alex Bowman is going to be back this upcoming race, not this weekend, but next weekend at Phoenix. The reason being is because it's good to see that Bowman has recovered nicely. I was about to talk about this earlier, but I talked about Jeff Andrews said that Alex Bowman had been recovering really, really nice. He said he was doing really much better. This is really, really good to see. Now, my big question is, how well is Alex Bowman going to perform in his first start? I don't expect Bowman to go super aggressive in his return just because of the fact that basically he kind of just recovered from a concussion. He doesn't want to get involved in another injury and potentially have another career-ending injury that could really come and backpedal him and put him in a really bad position. I'm just so happy to know that Alex Bowman is officially coming back to drive the number 48, and it's good to see he's been medically cleared to race next weekend. I'm a little surprised he isn't going to sit out the rest of the season, but then again, Bowman's had that itch and has wanted to come back, and I'm very happy to see that he's recovered. It's good to see a driver is returning from a concussion. I mean, we haven't seen anybody. We've seen a couple drivers out for injuries. We know that Kurt Busch, he announced his retirement, but the difference between Alex Bowman and Kurt Busch is Alex Bowman is a much younger driver. Alex Bowman is only 29 years old. He's born in 1993, and he's like he's about 15 years younger than Kurt Busch. Kurt Busch, unfortunately, was just 44, 45 years old, so he's a much older driver. So I think that's why the recovery process for a driver like Alex Bowman was much quicker than a driver like Kurt Busch, but concussions can take a lot longer to recover from some people than others. So I'm just really happy to see that he's coming back to drive the number 48 car, which means that Noah Gragson more than likely is done racing this season in the Cup Series, which he now can focus on trying to win the Xfinity Series Championship, which I think Noah Gragson's done a very solid job in the number 48 car. He's gotten a lot of reps, and honestly, I think Noah Gragson's probably more happy now, though, to try to focus on winning that Xfinity Series Championship than going out there and just racing in Cup races and not pushing it 100%, because he has said this in the past. Speaking of Claire B. Lang, he has said that basically he has not pushed it as much in the Cup cars as he had in the Xfinity Series cars, because he's going out to try and win Xfinity Series Championship. He doesn't want to get injured in the Cup car in the next gen cars. We know that next gen cars has safety issues, but we know that NASCAR behind the scenes, they're currently working on some major fixes to fix these issues on the safety stuff. But I'm just so happy to see that we are going to see the return of Alex Bowman. I'm just happy Bowman is coming back to the 48 team. We'll get to have their main guy back in the 48 car. Bowman can focus. But again, I don't expect Bowman to push 100% probably till next year. Now, going into next year, because he's got to have more months to actually get really full recovery, which is good to see the doctors have medically cleared him. Again, it sucks he can't even race for championship because he got eliminated due to not racing anymore. But I'm just very happy to see that Bowman is basically recovered enough where he can get back behind the wheel. I don't know if he'll perform as well as he has, but I'm just so happy to see that Bowman has it medically cleared to race. It's just really good to see, and I'm glad to see that Bowman will be back behind the wheel of the number 48 car next weekend at Phoenix. It won't be racing this weekend. It'll be at the track most likely this weekend at Martinsville, trying to support Alex Noah Gragson, just making sure that Noah Gragson doesn't throw up in the car. But I'm really happy to say that Alex Bowman's going to be back on the wheel, and he'll be back on the wheel next weekend at Phoenix. So, that is your today's Law NASCAR in Motorsports video. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please like, subscribe to the channel, notifications on to be notified when a video does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and for my Patreon as well. Links to description below for that, and combo your thoughts on today's video. Where do you think Hailie Deegan is going to end up? Do you think she'll end up in the Xfinity Series in 2023 or not? Let me know in the comments below. And what are your thoughts about DJR Racing rebranding and switching over to Tricon Garage and Toyota in 2023? Let me know in the comments below. Tomorrow on my channel, we're going to have the NASCAR Xfinity Series race review from Martinsville Speedway. And then Sunday, we'll have the Cup review from Martinsville Speedway. And then the next week, we got a lot of content on the way. Monday, a double upload day. We'll have a NASCAR news video. And also, we are going to have the Trucks Championship 4 picks. Then we'll have on Tuesday, the Xfinity Series 1. And then on Wednesday, a double upload video day as well. We've got a lot of those coming up and a lot of content on the way during Championship Week. And the off-season is going to be also really busy as well. So anyway, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's episode, and I'll see you guys next time for some more great, awesome NASCAR content and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.